Hi everyone, Shaylin here. Today I am joined by the beautiful and lovely Olivia Bryant, and today we're going to dive straight in and talk about really taking ownership of your body and feeling good in your body and how to open up to more pleasure in your life. And Olivia is an amazing woman. She is a sexologist and a conscious loving coach, and she co-founded Awaken the Cervix, which I was privileged to be a part of earlier this year to help women around the globe to heal and open up to more pleasure. So welcome, Olivia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So really just wanted to get started and ask you how did you take ownership of your body? What was your own personal journey for that?
Good question. It was a fairly long journey. I think when I was in my early 20s, I grew up in a household where sex wasn't talked about at all, which is pretty normal for most families of people my generation. And so I wasn't really I didn't understand pleasure and sex. I understood about like diseases and pregnancy and all of that stuff, but I didn't really understand what orgasm was, what self-pleasuring was. I thought you had to have a partner to, have a really enjoyable sexual experience. But when I started having sex, it was really not great. It was fine, but it was, not everything that I thought it would be. And I realized also that I couldn't talk about it, and I felt a little ashamed of my sexual self, and I could feel inside of me that there was a lot of sexuality that wanted to be expressed, but I just didn't know how to get that part of myself out. It didn't feel like I had permission to own that part of myself and to really like let loose. There was a whole lot, one of the worst things that you could be called as a young woman is a slut, right? And so you grow up thinking that you've got to repress this side of yourself. And in the long relationship that I was in, this is in my early 20s, because I was repressing this side of myself, I also experienced low libido and didn't know what to do about it. And in fact, I went to a doctor and I was so shy that I handed her a note that said, "I've got low libido. I don't know what to do about it. Can you help me?" And, she read the note and she said something vague like, "Oh, I think, you can have a blood test or something." And I said, "Well, is there anyone I can talk to?" And this was in New Zealand about, 15 years ago. And she said, "Oh, I don't really know. I don't know who you can talk to." And I just felt so alone. And then I left for New York, and eventually that relationship split up. And I was working in a cafe in New York, and there was a woman sitting at a table, and she was writing all day, every day. And I said, finally, "What are you writing?" And she said, "I'm writing about female sexuality." And she said, "Can I ask you some questions?" And I said, "Sure." And, I think the first question she asked me was, "How do you masturbate?" And I was like, so like freaked out by that question. I mean, I don't know if I could even answer that question. I don't think I even knew myself. And so she took me under her wing and started, helping me explore and sending me on little pleasure missions and challenging me and opening up my world, basically. And I noticed that when I started to open up my world and start to love my sexuality and kind of be playful with it and let this part of me out, that I started to grow in confidence, and I started to, grow in self-worth. And eventually I decided that this was a journey that I wanted to bring other women into. But that was also took a long time because it's a big space to hold. It's a precious subject, and you have to be a big container to be able to hold all the stuff that comes up for women in sexuality. Because even though it might look like there's a lot of freedom around sexuality and everybody's liberated and showing everything, actually it's a lot of it is show, and there's still a lot of repression and shame and confusion around sexuality. So, I took ownership by a process of like going through the pain and realizing that unless I made some shifts, I would be living a very small life. So,
Yeah, that to me is music to my ears because I had a very, very similar upbringing. And yeah, the SLUT word was a no-go zone, and anything that, yeah, anything that was to do with that was shut in a room and not to be looked at. And so, and it affected so many areas of my life. Really, not taking ownership of my sexuality and not taking ownership of what is natural, what comes naturally, what as kids we explore and we play with, and then whoever we're around, whatever has influenced or conditioned them, is usually what conditions and influences us in relation to that precious subject. So, yeah, so a lot of I could
yeah.
resonate with a lot of things that you were saying, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
And, if you look at sex, like it is such a big part of yourself. It's where we come from. And so if you put that in a box and you don't acknowledge it, you are shutting down a massive part of who you are. It's fundamental to being human. And, for the majority of the world, it is shut away in a box that is like, dirty or shameful or not to be talked about or private or personal. But actually, it's very universal. And what I found with my work is that the more it's just talked about, like anything else, that there is women can relax, everybody can just relax. But as long as it's sort of not talked about, then there's a charge around it. And in the not talking, there's an immediate assumption that there's something wrong or shameful. So my mission and, our mission with Awaken the Cervix is to encourage and invite women to share as much as possible, because we ultimately teach each other through our sharing, through our own experiences. I don't really believe in there being a one teacher or I think we've all got something to offer each other as women, and just hearing someone else's pain and struggle and liberation is just so moving that it helps everyone open.
And so in relation to the pain and the struggle, how would you, for someone that really doesn't feel confident, doesn't feel comfortable in their skin, doesn't feel good, what is the first step? Because that journey can seem monumental, almost like in Mount Everest. And so what is that first step that you would recommend for someone who is watching this and really just doesn't, wants to change but doesn't know what to do?
Yeah. Well, I guess what I did was I started reading books, because that was a safe way for me to start having a peek into a reality before I was ready. So I remember I read Betty Dodson's Sex for One, and she's a very liberated woman, older now, she's 80, but she basically liberated orgasm in the 70s. And so reading stories like that, and I also read a book called Exhibitionism for the Shy, and that was really influential for me because I saw the journey of a woman who was shy and repressed move through, exploring and just being inspired by that, and their stories help me feel like it's not wrong and that it's okay. So I think that's a really safe way to start exploring. And then obviously if you feel like you want to take the next step, it's great to have someone that you can work with, someone that you can talk to easily about it. And so working with a coach or a therapist is a great idea. Starting to explore touch in your own body, play, like even if you're not comfortable even in your own skin, start dancing, playing music, like getting comfortable in your own body, moving sensuously, even non-sensual physical activity is a great way to just get into the body. But then at the same time, there's great things like belly dancing out there, and other forms of dance that really help you get into your sensuality. And then, exploring self-touch and just breathing with yourself and feeling, because often there's a disassociation that happens if you've got a lot of shame. A lot of women won't be able to feel their bodies. And so I encourage doing like shaking, actually, a lot of shaking and moving and then pausing and just feeling energy moving in the breasts and in the pelvis. Breasts are very important for a woman. And for a lot of women, they're quite numb. So breast massage is another really easy way to get into it. I recommend having coconut oil in the shower and doing that as a daily practice of self-love, because essentially it's a coming into exploration is getting into right relationship with sexuality and really getting that it is your right to have a body that's built for pleasure, and really getting that you were made to experience this. And so as a birthright, coming from that place, it becomes much easier than taking on all of the imposed messages from around us. So it's like okay, so I've got all these imposed messages like masturbation is dirty, or you don't need to masturbate because you've got a partner. All of those things, like taking them away and getting really clear, this is my body and I want to see what it can do. So yeah, standing in front of a mirror or even looking at your vagina in the mirror, it's a great, with love.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for that addition. The with love.
Yeah, and like really getting that the vagina, or in Tantra, it's called the yoni, is a gateway between physical life and spirit. Like it is a divine portal. And so if you can take away the ego judgment of it doesn't look this way or it doesn't look that way, and really get its magical purpose in our lives, it becomes something that you can revere. We used to live in matriarchal societies where women were worshipped and adored, and their bodies were the first worshipped objects, because they could, like when I say objects, I mean relics. There's actual stone relics, carvings of women's bodies, and they were so revered because they could birth life like Mother Earth and feed life like Mother Earth. And when the human population was trying to grow, I mean, this was miraculous. And it was even assumed that women were impregnated by like seeds flying through the air. Like nobody knew that men had a role in impregnating a woman. So women's bodies were just considered miraculous. And so I always imagine how great it would be if whenever you went to the gynecologist, you'd open your legs and you'd be like, welcome to my temple, let alone a partner. Yeah. This is a temple.
Yeah.
It's a temple. It really is. It's where alchemy happens.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. One of the things that popped up for me was feeling wrong and feeling shame. And so for most women in this society, I won't say most, but for some women in this society, there is a lot of shame. There is a lot of mixed messages. And as you said, messages being imposed on us that, this is the way we should look. This is the way we should be having sex. This is, this is the way we should be parenting. And so when there is this idea of having a temple and knowing that we have a temple within us, what do you share with women to help them to really stop that? Because I mean, social media is a classic example as well. Like a lot of the time it's all pervasive. We have this technology which has a lot of benefits, but a lot of drawbacks as well in terms of, the iPhone or a smartphone, internet. And so what do you recommend to women to really remember that the yoni is a temple, and it is miraculous, and we are miraculous, and starting to change that conditioning, both from family and from society at large?
Mm. Um, I think there's quite a bit to your question there because there's a lot on shame, and so I'll just address shame for a moment.
Great.
Shame we is a collective. It comes from being in community. So tribally, if you did something wrong, you would be banished from the tribe, and that would mean that you would potentially starve. And so being shamed was a life or death threat. And we still have that in our wiring that, when you are rejected from the tribe, it feels like you're going to die. And so we do anything that we can to keep a sense of normal and look like we're normal to everybody else, like we're fitting in so that we don't get rejected by the tribe. So one of the things that we have to start to do is to start celebrating our uniqueness, actually, and empowering ourselves to stand up for who we are rather than kind of getting in line, because that's a very manipulative cultural structure that we all get in line, and shame is the way that we're made to get in line. Mm. And so I'm kind of a fiery personality, and if anybody tells me that something's wrong, I like to stand up and I'll fight. I'll be like, no. And so I encourage women to like, get the impact of standing in line and masking and covering who you are without being having the courage to be vulnerable. The impact is a shrinking back of your life force, essentially. And so when it comes to the yoni and knowing it's a temple, I mean, wow, this is, it's not an easy one to shift overnight, because it comes historically through our mothers, through our grandmothers, and way beyond that, where, the vagina was seen as dirty, and the patriarchy were very scared of the female anatomy and female sexual power. So it's been castrated historically, right? And so we come with this massive, baggage that still sits in our DNA. So, for me, it's about like honoring the past, but then, celebrating, like getting to know my own yoni. And like I said, doing the mirror exercise where you look at your vagina in the mirror with reverence, with awe. I mean, if you've had a baby, like, wow, it's amazing that you really get what your vagina has done. And, developing a relationship with the sensations, thanking the vagina for every sensation of pleasure that you get, sitting like daily, I check in all the time with my yoni. The program that I created with Shay, Elise Allen, Awaken the Cervix, is all about developing a deeper relationship with your pelvic region, particularly your cervix and your vagina. Because what happens with shame and, this contractive energy, like, I don't want to be seen, what do I smell like, what do I taste like? There's a contraction, is that we start to tense up, and then we start to limit our pleasure, and in some case we get numb. And, and the cervix for many women is numb because of unconscious penetration, because of medical procedures. So what happens is the woman will disconnect. And so through practices like Awaken the Cervix, where we work on what's called de-armoring, which is essentially releasing the tension in the tissue, a woman can start to feel more, and she starts to see what all the pleasure is held inside her yoni. So it's it's not just clitoral pleasure, but a lot of deeper sensations to be felt inside. So once you start to develop this relationship, it becomes easier to love this part of your body. And then when you realize the impact of unconscious sex and shaming yourself, how it's shutting you down, how it shuts down your sexuality, your pleasure, then you start to become more conscious of who you open to, under what conditions you open. You know, you're a little more aware of, like, you know, being ready for penetration. You know, you're not going to just be a pleaser and say, yep, enter me, when you know, you really aren't ready or you really don't want to, because that's, you know, not coming from a place of self-honoring, but coming from a place of I'm not good enough or I'm inadequate. So, so developing a relationship is really key, so you can start to celebrate your uniqueness and own it, you know. And I also just want to add there that shame is one of those things that I don't know if it ever goes away. I don't know. I think it's in us, and I think that every time you reach an edge, you have to negotiate it again. Or every time you go into a space where you feel uncomfortable, you got to negotiate it again. And so I see shame as a medicine, and that if you can go there, feel it, get it, and rise above it, then you're getting stronger. That's how you start to, you know, love yourself more, because you're being with shame. You're not resisting it and running, being with it, feeling it, and rising above it. So you move to the next level. And I think with sex, that's it. You're just going from level to level. I mean, you know, once upon a time I couldn't really talk about sex. Now my sex life is all over the internet. But, you know, and before that, it was like, oh my God, can I really put this out there? And, you know, my mom was like, well, you're putting a lot of stuff out there now. Like, and, you know, I felt that ancestral shame, and, you know, it's kind of like, it's there, and you just keep moving forward through it.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you said. So I check in with my yoni multiple times a day as well. That's where my intuition has shifted from my mind to my heart and now my yoni, because I've developed a relationship, and it's an opening or a closing. You know, that's how I sense it, and it's not words anymore. And it was interesting that you said about really working with us. Same with fear. You know, anything we're afraid of, anything that is holding us back, as long as we work with it, as long as we have a dialogue or a discussion or are open to investigating and exploring it, that's where the freedom comes from. And so it's great that you shared that around shame, because again, fear is something that is in us, and it's in the fight or flight, you know, and it's what's wired within us at our core from primal times. So you expanding on that is just, it's incredible, really. I've got a lot of new and different ways to perceive shame, so that I can take that forward. And also the lineage as well. You know, the great thing is, one of the mentors that I've worked with said that when we heal something, that it actually follows through 7 generations ahead and 7 generations behind us. And because time doesn't exist, right? So where we are right in this moment now is such a powerful opportunity for healing. And so anytime I look at things that I'm afraid of, or I find, you know, things bubbling up that I'm ashamed of still, I remember that, and it just makes me feel like I'm not alone. Yeah. I'm actually healing and we're in a great time now where sex is able to be open, you know, 10, 20, 50, 30 years ago, to be able to put something up, you know, even or the word orgasm, you just wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah, well, when I started doing this 10 years ago, no one was doing it, you know, and it was like, it was scary. It was like, well, where is everybody? And, you know, I didn't quite know how to start going about it. But it's interesting what you said about feeling not alone, because that's how you heal shame ultimately, is outing it And, shame lives in dark places. It feeds on secrecy. Whatever's secret, it's got shame around it. So if you refuse to keep it secret, it can no longer have shame. And I've healed some of my most things that I thought I would take to the grave. I've healed because I've decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to out this now in front of this group of people. And once I outed it and I got no judgment back, then it loses its charge and it loses its power. And so, it's particularly one thing I've pulled out that I've shared, and it doesn't have a charge over me at all. And so that's why with Awaken the Cervix, there's a forum, and we really encourage the sharing of experiences. And it is edgy for women because we still get a lot of I'm not really ready to share, or I don't feel comfortable sharing. And there's a part of me that's like, please share, please. You just don't understand it. It benefits everyone. Like, you're a healer. The minute you share, you become a healer of everyone, because it's not even just about you. Even though it feels so deeply personal, it's not about you. It's you've got a role to play in our collective unconsciousness. And if you hold back, then you don't get to play the role, or you play it, you just play a different role. So it's it's I'm so passionate about this, and I know also that you can't push people before they're ready. So I hold back, and I just respect everybody has their own time. But there's a little firecracker in me that's like, just do it, don't be afraid. And we can all just liberate ourselves. Oh, take it off,
Yeah, and that's the thing, because a lot of the women that I work with, is it painful enough? There's a lot of times where it's not painful enough to get to that point of, okay, I need to shift this now. This is no more. I've had enough. And
yeah,
it's that moment of getting to that point of, okay, should I push or should I hold back in terms of what does this person need right now? And the other thing, I guess, with Awaken the Cervix is having the other women. So it doesn't just feel like, with like what you're saying about the forum. So it's not a one-on-one, which can sometimes feel confronting. It's a one-to-many. And so if there is another woman feeling the same way that someone's feeling, then they're more likely, or experiencing the same thing that they're experiencing, they're more likely to open up and say, oh yeah, I've experienced that. And just by them saying, oh yeah, I've experienced that too, helps to free them and to free other women.
Yeah, it's free because you're not alone anymore. And it's like, oh, I'm not rejected from the tribe, I'm welcomed back in. I don't have to have that, I'm going to be, I'm rejected, I'm not worthy. And somebody goes, oh, me too. And you're like, really? And then suddenly you've got community. Yeah. And then it's like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But, everybody's got a process. And my thing is just I trust the energy and sexual energy. It's very powerful. So I trust that energy will come up and out when it's ready.
Yes.
And, I can only be, I play my role. And so it's, just a lot of trust.
And what's one thing that you would like to share with women who are watching this? What is one thing that has got you to where you are now? I mean, I appreciate there's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different teachers, a lot of different books. But what is one thing that you could leave with someone so that it will help the energy come up and out, or one or a few things?
Okay. Well, I guess the first thing that popped into my mind is, I've got three things.
Yeah, that's fine.
One is redefining orgasm, and we're very stuck in a masculine model of orgasm, which is the clitoral experience, the normal clitoral experience, the usual clitoral experience, which follows a rise of energy, a peak, and a drop-off. And that, just the model that is so linear with this climb, means that immediately there's an achievement. There's an achievement aspect, And for many women's bodies, that's not that easy to do. And so a lot of women feel they're anorgasmic, or they take so long, or, they can't match their partners. It's a very male-bodied thing to be able to do. You keep friction going for a while, and then there's an explosion, and then, you've had your orgasm, and then you go to sleep. And so I'm in Awaken the Cervix, and in my own work as a sex coach, I help women reframe orgasm so that they start to understand the orgasmic state. And that is a place, that is a nonlinear journey. It doesn't have the climax with the drop off. You just keep building your pleasure, either clitorally, but I'm recommending just use the clitoris for arousal and then see what else is going on inside the body. And you just keep building arousal, and you keep building arousal, you keep building, and you just keep expanding, and you don't have the hit of prolactin, which means that you've got to not be touched anymore because you're too sensitive clitorally. So the orgasmic state is one where you're already the involuntary nervous system is already activated. You might be twitchy, your breathing has accelerated, your heart rate is accelerated. Your nipples might be erect. You're kind of in orgasm. So rather than having orgasm being something that you get to, or someone gives you, or something that you have, it's something that you are. And so you are in a state of orgasm. You are with orgasm. So that state can just go on and on and on, and it's inclusive of all women's experiences, so long as you're available to feel and build and receive pleasure. So you're ultimately building so much pleasure in your body that you're in a shifted state of consciousness. So you're in a totally different brain space. And so this is the orgasmic state. And that, I think, is more inclusive of all women. And I really like to share that as a teaching. I think the next one is love your cervix. Start to get to know your cervix. Do you have pain? Do you have numbness? Do you have pleasure? Start stimulating your cervix. Rather than getting off on a clitoral orgasm, start to see what's in your cervix, and also notice tension and pain in the vagina. So every woman, I believe, ought to be massaging their vagina, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever, just as long as you're releasing the tension that gets built and held there, because women are keepers of a lot of energy. We hold a lot through our cycle, and after menstruation we release it all, and it's just, we hold a lot of tension and stress in the tissue. So releasing that helps a woman earth, and when a woman is earthed, that's when she can expand. But most women are tense and pulled up, which means they're pulled off the earth. Right? And we're earth beings. Women are we're earthy, and so we need to get down and get connected to our roots, to the earth. So letting the cervix relax down, letting the yoni relax down, and really connecting to earth, that's important. And developing this relationship of self-love so that you can start to ask for what you want and need in the bedroom, if you're partnered from a lover, so that you can be entered when you're ready, rather than just to please your partner. And knowing what that is, so knowing what your arousal patterns are, owning it, claiming it, and teaching a partner how to love your body, because they don't know unless you educate. And a lot of women are scared that they come across as being needy. But I think if you come with a positive frame, and not from a you don't do this frame, if you come from positive, this is how I like to be loved, then I imagine that most men who are, or partners of women who are interested in their partner, would want that information. So don't feel there's something wrong with you if it takes you 30 minutes to 45 minutes to want to be penetrated. That's actually normal. Yeah, we don't follow the masculine quick arousal. We are like water. We're slow to boil, but once we're boiling for a long time.
Thank you for that. And the precursor, I guess, to having a partner, educate a partner in loving your body is knowing what it is that you love as well. So taking that journey and exploring yourself at the same time, or if before being with your partner, is really helpful as well, because it means that you have you already know, so you can explore with your partner, but also exploring with yourself, because a lot of the self-pleasuring that I do, it just feeds into intimacy with my partner. So I definitely know that that's something that really works well.
Yeah, that's what you can do on your own and discover what you like, you know, and just keep bringing a lot of awareness and attention to these parts of the bodies. Like I like to do, you know, when I meditate, I don't kind of meditate on nothingness. I meditate on my breasts. I just feel as much sensation as I can, and you know, it's great. And that's how I essentially de-armor my breasts, like by feeling and by bringing all of my attention into the subtle nuances and sensations that are present. And it's actually really engaging, and I find that I can meditate for quite a long time when I'm meditating on my breasts. But you know, you can, so self-pleasuring, and also thinking about sexual experiences that you've had in the past, or maybe that you've seen in movies or fantasized about, and taking note of what you find really hot. And you know, then the next step is being able to share it with the partner. And there's sort of fun games that you can play for sharing fantasy or sharing what you want with a partner. But, you know, it's something also that's quite important, is to be able to share. But that comes back to that shame conversation of like, okay, I'm going to get to my edge. I'm going to feel this like, oh, and I'm going to choose to share it. And you can frame it like, oh, I feel so nervous sharing this with you. Or, oh, this is crazy. Like I feel scared, or I'm so scared of being judged, or, you know, and then like, and, you know, what I would really love to experience is la, 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 la. You know, you can be cute about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Serious. Like ultimately sex is play. And I think that that's what we have to remember.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to come to a close of our conversation, is that sex is play, and that the more you feel and the more that you enjoy and explore this, the more you'll feel good in your skin as well. So, and you know, you'll radiate energy that is just, you know, head turning. So
yeah,
thank you so much for sharing this sacred space with me. Where can women find more information about Awaken the Cervix?
Yeah, so Awaken the Cervix is www.awakenthecervix.com, and we start our next journey in June 1, so only in a few days, and the next one after that I don't think it's going to be till October, but you can go and sign up if you can't make the next journey, and you can find my stuff at oliviabryant.com.au.
Thank you so much. And for those of you that want to contact me, it's Shaylin at shaylinrose.com or www.shaylinrose.com. Thank you so much, Olivia. I really appreciate your time, and good luck with the next exploration, the next Awaken the Cervix, and we'll speak soon.
Much love.
Bye.
Bye.